flat out question to you, if you can answer. Is it your opinion, not fact, but your opinion, that Wendy eventually gets indicted and convicted of this crime?
Never forget, Luis Rivera said in his proffer that Sigfredo turned to him and said, there's the lady that wants her kids back. There's Wendy. Back to back. The lady is Wendy. When they got in that car trouble and Shodrick Nobles was on the stand in that first trial, he said, we should call the lady. All those things bubble up and there's some sort of tangible proof. Wendy's a goner.
Welcome to the global phenomenon, Surviving the Survivor, where we're all just trying to survive in a rough world.
Carm, I don't need to tell you, the Dan Markel murder case turned upside down about 2 weeks ago when Katie Magbanua turned state's evidence, told her attorneys, Krista Koss and Tara Kawas, I almost rhyme, that she was ready to turn state's evidence and basically come forward, which she has done this week, to speak to prosecutors about information that we still are not completely aware of. And so the case has gotten incredibly interesting, and we have two of the best guests that you can get on this. Judy Tseng of Asian American Legal Focus, and she's almost like Oprah at this point, but she has two names. Fanci with an I, an homage to how Wendy Adelson spells her name. Fanci Fiction. We don't know who she is. We don't know what she looks like. I've actually seen a photo of her forearm before, a very attractive forearm. And I've seen a photo of her, I believe, Converse Chuck Connor high tops, I think. But other than that, I have no idea who she is. Before we get to them, I would be remiss if I did not say, and by the way, Fanci has her own YouTube page and a Patreon page. Check it out. Same with Judy, Asian American Legal Focus. And we are getting on the bandwagon, Carm. It takes a lot of work, a lot of effort, a lot of time, and plenty of money that I don't have. So we do have a Patreon page. Shout out to Ileana Bugsy Diaz, my wife, who set it all up. It is still pretty much a work in progress, but it is ready to go. And if you guys enjoy the podcast and want to get some exclusive access and swag and be able to talk to Carmela, etc., please dip into our Patreon page. You'll find it at Surviving the Survivor. I'd love to have you become patrons of Patreon.
Do you want to help my son? His company, Content Partners Media, specializes in brand video and content creation for innovative companies and others. Please go to www.contentpartnersmedia.com and hire him. I repeat, please go to www.contentpartnersmedia.com.
Fanci and Judy, starting with Fanci. How are you, Fanci?
I'm doing good. I'm glad I was able to break the news of Katherine Magbanua turning state's evidence and seeing everybody scramble. Kudos to you. That was an excellent episode that you did with Jeremy and Preston.
The best producer in the news business, Steve Cohen, gets us all the greatest guests. But Fanci, you're the one that breaks the news. So
how did you break the news? How did that happen?
She can't reveal sources.
No, but you have sources or what?
What do you mean, does she have sources?
No. Wait a second. How does it happen? It's a document, but how did she get
Fanci, do you want to elaborate without giving it away about how you get the scoop on almost everything related to this case?
Yeah, I mean, I have been here since 2016. I mean, a lot of people, I know you guys are kind of new to it, but I sat in Katherine Magbanua's bond hearing for 2 days and some case management hearings back in 2016. So I sat and pretty much watched Georgia lay out all the evidence with the local TV news back in 2016. I sat in the galley. I was chatting with Craig Isom as he waited to testify and rode the elevator with him and Sherry Bennett and really got a sense of everything many, many years ago. And because of that, I have gained a lot of trust and loyalty from a lot of people that I can't disclose. And that is how things come. And even now people, I think broke something this morning about the delay, the continuance because of Rashbaum's, I don't know what happened to him, but I think it's a sign of things to come. If getting us bracing for things being delayed and continuances.
Fanci, let me jump in there for one quick second because this is important. This happened about a week ago from when this will air, and it's important, and you did break it, and it is a continuance, which means that the defense, Charlie Adelson's defense, is asking for more time leading up to their case hearing, which was scheduled for December 2nd. And the legal document reads, defendant Charles Adelson, by and through undersigned counsel, hereby respectfully moves this court for an order continuing the December 2nd, 2022 case management hearing for my eyesight 2 to 3 weeks to allow undersigned counsel, Daniel Rashbaum, who recently, listen to this, Carm, nice Jewish boy here, who recently fractured his ankle to more easily attend the hearing in person. The lawyer, Daniel Rashbaum, who's an avid tennis player, I wonder if he did it playing tennis, broke his ankle. I told you that Fanci broke this on the way in here today, and you said to me what when you heard about a broken ankle?
Well, there are crutches.
Crutches, that's what Steve Cohen said as well. So
I introduced the new concept, crutches.
But Judy, what do you make of this, that a broken ankle now? Is this a stall tactic? Are they looking for more time here?
Well, it could be, but I've actually broken my ankle in the past too. And I remember how long it took me to recover. I don't know if he had to have surgery or screws inserted, but certainly I remember being in a lot of pain and I had to keep my foot elevated almost all day. It was really, really hard to get around, even to just go to the bathroom. You feel your foot swelling and the pain and everything. So I do feel sorry for him. I don't really think it's a delay tactic, but, it sure comes at kind of an interesting point of time.
That goes under the heading Lawyers of the World. Lawyers of the World Unite.
Yeah, I'm backing him up. I don't think he's just like making something up. He did say in the motion that he has an appointment on December 7th. With his orthopedist, and the doctor has told him that he should try to stay off his feet as much as possible.
Carmela, if I was an attorney and I was representing Charlie Adelson and I called you and I said, Carm, I broke my ankle, you'd go, what is the matter with you? How could you do this? This is a Freudian, literally a Freudian slip. Literally a Freudian. How could you do this? You go to court no matter what. Never let me miss court for a broke. Rashbaum, suck it up and get to court.
Well, maybe his mother is nice.
Fanci, right now, huddling in Tallahassee is Katie Magbanua and her attorneys, Tara Kawas and Krista Koss, which kind of rhymes, which I never realized until right now. What do you make of all this, Fanci? You've been following this 2 trials in, and now she's turning state's evidence. What's going on here, Fanci?
Angela was the one who passed me this information. And when I broke it on Patreon, it's funny, I put in the first thing in the notes I put was, have you heard of crutches? So Carm and I's mind went exactly to the same place. I wanted to do that and give Angela a shout out because she was the one that tipped me off. But I was hoping that Katie would have different lawyers for this stage of cooperation, quite frankly. I think they bloodied the water trying to calling Georgia unethical in court documents and all throughout the trial. I found it to be in very poor taste and very lowbrow, and I would like to see her with some fresh counsel. And I know that's harsh, and that's...
Judy, since you're the attorney, since they were kind of going at each other, Tara Kawas, Krista Koss, pitted against Georgia Kappelman, does that have any impact on whatever's going on in Tallahassee right now with Katie turning state's evidence? Is there any kind of prejudice if you're Georgia Kappelman? Do you have to overcome and put that to the side when you're dealing Katie revealing whatever she is revealing to them right now?
Mm-hmm. Well, she seems like a very professional person. Obviously, I don't know her, but I think she can set aside whatever might have happened in the previous trials. I also noticed that on Deep Dive True Crime, Mentor Lawyer said that it's actually Christopher DeCoste that is going to be representing Katie in doing this proffer. So I don't think Kawas is involved now. That's basically the impression she gave also after the sentencing, that she would sort of be involved, but really she was passing Katie on as someone who was indigent to the public defender's office, which has withdrawn its counsel for her due to a conflict of interest. But that's the way it is. I think in pretty much every legal community, that people are doing their jobs and you have to try to keep it professional and don't take it too personally if someone seems like they are attacking you or seeming, like maybe a little bit too overzealous as an advocate, but everybody's doing their job.
And Fanci, last week we covered the Idaho student, the 4 students that were murdered at the University of Idaho in Moscow, Idaho, which I found out is Moscow and not Moscow. Horrific, grisly scene. We had a professor emeritus who scolded the media for speculating about what could happen. And he made a great point. But not speculating doesn't make for exciting podcasts. So with that said, what do you think caused Katie Magbanua to step forward and make a deal? Why the sudden flip here?
Going back to whether Georgia can interface with these 2 lawyers who were just unnecessarily in dinner theater, justice warriors or whatever, all their behavior, poor behavior, in my opinion. She did, I think it was on your channel, it might have been Mentor Lawyers, but she did, I think you asked her what was the relationship like, Georgia? Normally after all these big high profile cases, do you go out with the opposing counsel and have a beer and put it kind of all behind you? The fight's over. And Georgia very specifically said, not with those 2. Remember that?
I do. I remember that.
So I think that feeds a little bit into, yes, she can do it because it's her job, but she's not going to like doing it because of the professional manner in which those 2 conducted themselves all these years.
Carm, I was curious what you think of this, because it seems like they don't really like each other. From a professional standpoint, can they overcome this to get done whatever needs to be done in terms of
100% they can overcome it.
Okay, so Fanci, you're going to continue to my question.
I didn't say 100% they will overcome it.
They could.
I said they could overcome it.
We don't know that she's going to be completely honest. They've done this before, going back to the professionalism of Christopher DeCose and Tara Kawas, or Tara, or whatever, justice warriors. They brought Georgia and it was a state's attorney's investigator. Essentially, they invited Georgia and team to come right before that first trial and talk to Katie, and then she just really spun them in circles. And Georgia said on the stand, the defense team brought up the fact that, hey, we invited you in to have Katie answered all your questions before trial, and that they didn't tell you what you like. She didn't tell you what you wanted to hear. So they've done this before. So they've already been hoodwinked by this team previously under a very serious, taking their time out of the day to go to the jail to talk to Katie. So now it's an about face where, yeah, she's guilty. She's never going to see the light of day. So that trust has already been so broken in so many ways. I don't really have full faith that we're going to get the truth from Katie because, the best indicator of the future is past behavior, right? So I just have no trust in this defense team. And I have no trust in Katherine Magbanua, and I have no trust that we'll get a satisfying resolution out of her turning state's evidence.
Judy, do you feel the same way? Are you skeptical?
A little bit, but I feel a little bit more optimistic also. I do recall Christopher DeCotte saying some complimentary things about Kappelman and the prosecutors when the last trial was over, but I don't remember any exact quotes from what he said. But I feel that Katie's at a point of total desperation, and who really wants to spend the rest of their life in prison? So, that's why it was really, to me, it was great news to finally hear, thanks to Fanci Fiction and Angela.
So for full disclosure, we were actually going to have some ex-cons, female ex-cons today, but one of them was not caught stealing, but they were caught with a cold, so they couldn't make it. So this is a question that Steve Cohen, the world-renowned booking producer, gave to me, which I would like to now pose to both of you. What do you think jail, Fanci, why don't you take a stab at this first? What do you think jail might be like for the approximately 73-year-old Donna Adelson, and these are Steve Cohen's words, not mine, the Jewish American princess Wendy Adelson? Let's just assume for a minute that Katie presents something that is fruitful, turns the case upside down. These two find themselves eventually convicted. What do you think prison and or jail would be like for these two, Fanci?
I think they have Donna. They're going to move on Donna regardless of Katie. So I think that, just want to make that point. They don't need Katie for Donna, in my opinion, even though Georgia said it's going to take something else to make another arrest. I mean, I think that they could make a case on Donna, at least get her for conspiracy, or some, it doesn't have to be murder one, but I think they've got her. I think a competent attorney, a state's attorney can do that. I think Donna is going to need a heavy supply of adult diapers, because I don't think she will do well in there. And I think that she will lose complete control of her bodily fluids, as we hear she does on the wiretaps when she gets nervous. I think there's a good possibility Donna will die in jail. And the only alternative that she doesn't is if she rats out her own kids. So I think that she will die shortly after prison. I actually know someone who died in Leon County Jail by hanging themselves personally. That was a friend of mine. As an adolescent. So I know that it's tough, and especially it's tough for people who have mental illness, which I don't know if that would get Donna, but it might. Wendy, I think Wendy will see a completely different looking person after 6 months in jail. And I'm very interested to see that, with, just in terms of appearance wise, because she puts a lot of importance on her appearance.
To that point, first of all, I don't think there's makeup in jail. And secondly, to her, Elizabeth Holmes allegedly said that they don't put quote unquote pretty people like me in prison, which is exactly where she's going for 11 years. So, Wendy, you should be very well aware of that. Also, Fanci brings up incontinence of old people. So depends if you'd like to be a sponsor of our show. We are here with open arms. Judy, I mean, hypothetically speaking, she turns state's evidence. Katie, it blows the case wide open. Down the road, Donna and Wendy end up behind bars. What would that experience be like for them, in your opinion?
Well, I agree with what Fanci first said about possible suicide. It seems like Donna has already had a pretty awful last 6 years, having a lot of severe anxiety and needing medication. So I don't see her being able to really survive jail life. As for Wendy, I'm not sure. She seems like she could be the type of person that could put on a proud face, maybe transform herself in jail and become a teacher or find religion or something. I'm just totally guessing, though.
That is gives me the heebie-jeebies, just the prospect of facing prison. But go ahead, my dear mom.
Yeah, because I remembered what I wanted to say before, and if I lose it again, I will be very depressed. But I wanted to say that before Kaufman agreed to hear Magbanua's, what is it?
The proffer.
She must have reviewed certain things and agreed to certain things to just get to that point. She wouldn't have said, okay, if
correct. And Carmen, you bring up a great point. We had Jeremy Mutz on a couple of weeks ago, and he said there is kind of an unstated rule amongst attorneys, and that you've got to bring something. There's the implication that you've got to bring something to the table. There's not just a proffer to go and chit chat. So Carm makes an excellent point. And Judy, since you're the attorney, what would she have to bring to the state for it to be enough just to get to this point? Is there some sort of threshold of information?
Well, I mean, it's got to be, just as your previous guest said, it's got to be evidence that can be corroborated, especially at this point where she has repeatedly maintained her innocence over all these years. So I was guessing that maybe if there's a way she could still log into her WhatsApp account, that could be very, very helpful if she still has access to any incriminating messages between her and Charlie or any of the other Adelsons.
And Fanci, any thoughts on that? I mean, you think that, this might end up, a big false hope. And Carmela mentioned that when we spoke to Jeremy Mutz. What if nothing comes of it? But any thoughts on what Katie would have to bring to the state for it to be worthwhile enough for the state to move forward?
Yeah, I just want to circle back. Part of the problem when we switch from one to another. I mean, I'm not pessimistic about it. Let me finish my thought. I'm optimistic about it, actually. I'm pessimistic based on how the attorneys handled the truth thus far, right? So it's the pattern is not good leading up to this based on that other unfruitful theatric meeting between Georgia and Katie, right? So I am fruitful that, I am hopeful that something will come out of this, much like, I've made this point somewhere else, probably on my Patreon or my YouTube channel, much like, Luis Rivera, he didn't have hard evidence. He didn't keep a phone. He wasn't able to, he told them where he thought the gun was, but they didn't find the gun. So they didn't have that tangible piece. But what he did have was his memory, and they were able to chase that down. Part of me thinks a very good thing that might have happened is when Katie was found guilty and the attorney stayed back for those weeks after, that they started going right then and there. So what happens is they got what they wanted from Katie. They left town and they had to chase down and corroborate what Katie had told them, much like how they did with Luis when he said Sigfredo shot the gas line in the rental car of the Prius. Investigators had to go find that Prius, which had been resold to AAA, put that thing up, and were able to find that bullet hole. Therefore, guess what? Luis is credible. That's evidence that, that rehabilitates this criminal gang leader because he was telling the truth, and they were able to back it up. So the several months there could have been all of that going on while it was quiet. And this may just be a little bit of a theater. I don't know. There's no grand jury probably scheduled this week or next. Someone actually looked into that and told me, that's a possibility. So I think there's a lot going behind the scenes. And I also think it's quite possible that they've been working on trying to chase down, trying to legitimize whatever Katherine may have said shortly after being found guilty. That's also a theory.
And so, our great viewers, they always point to this. There's a photo of Wendy on the beach with Katie, and the viewers always talk about literal receipts that Katie could potentially have in her possession that could implicate other members of the Adelson family. Do you make anything of that, Judy? That photo, that connection, the possibility of actual tangible receipts?
Well, somehow I would be very surprised if she had real receipts from 2014, and I also don't think it's likely that she used her own credit card to pay for those drinks they're having on the beach. It was probably Charlie paying in stapled cash or something. But who knows? Who knows what other information is out there? I was just thinking that, Fanci, I hope I can say this, but on Fanci's Patreon page, there is some information about phone calls between Katie and her older brother. So who knows? Maybe the prosecutors or the investigators are trying to talk to that brother to get more information. What did Katie tell you? What was going on when you guys were speaking in Tagalog or, speaking in code, or what was she referring to, to also corroborate, whatever Katie might be saying now. So there could be other witnesses.
Fanci, did you just say that you think this process started right after the judgment of
the sentencing?
Yeah, I think that's very possible. I think that, it was that Tallahassee Democrat article where it said Chris Dacos had stuck around the following week to talk to his clients and even commented about how devastated his client was. I think it's very possible. This has been going on for years. To think that all of a sudden they're going to rework the board and everything's got to start anew. No, they're strategic. They're planning what would happen if they were found guilty. And I have think about it. Of course, they're going to start thinking what's their next move to make things better for their client after being found guilty. Maybe it's because they knew they had a smoking gun. They're like, okay, let's go as hard as we can. And we've always got this in the vault. We'll pull it out and shave off whatever we can because we know we've got this. So you just really have to think about all the different possibilities of, smart people that are trying to play the game. I also will point out, going back to Judy's point about my Patreon, I did a whole thing behind a paywall about Samantha Magbanua and about how Katie, shortly after the arrest, she ran to her brother's house and ended up working as a part-time receptionist while she was under suspicion at the accounting firm that her sister-in-law ended up is in jail now for I think over a decade for stealing over $1 million from people. But it was that time where she hunkered down with her brother. When her sister got arrested, her sister-in-law was arrested, I've seen in court documents, both Frances Magbanua and Samantha Magbanua Both were interviewed by the FBI.
That's very fascinating. Very fascinating.
But it's a total parenthesis that I'm sorry, I free associated, but did I dream this up that Tara Kavas said, I believe that Katie is innocent. And she kept harping on that she believes that Katie is, she says, Katie says she didn't do it and I believe her.
But I mean, Judy, that's a great point. I think she did say that, but to her defense, Tara Kavas, that's what a defense attorney sort of has to say, right?
Yeah, they're not going to come out to the media.
No, but she said, I believe her to be innocent. She was insisting literally until the last judgment that her client was.
Judy, what part of a defense attorney needs to be a defense attorney and what part has to be ethical and honest?
Well, I mean, ultimately, it doesn't matter what her previous defense attorney said, because she's not the defendant. That's just the attorney who was hired to zealously defend her client. So I don't fault Tara Kavas for, saying these now. I mean, a lot of people believe those were extreme, stupid statements, but I mean, and plus I've not practiced criminal defense, but as an attorney in general, there are plenty of times when attorneys really do believe in their clients, really to their heart, and it keeps you going. It makes you really motivated and you do all this work. And then bam, you find out your client lied to you, so I'm not going to bash Tara Kavas for making those statements.
But maybe because of this statement that she insisted, she really believed Katie that she was innocent. And then maybe because of that, she didn't go and negotiate a plea deal and till the very end, which was this is how it looked from the outside, that she did not negotiate for a plea deal. Now she's willing. Yeah. Now they are willing to negotiate.
You could point at Katie and say, well, Katie was the client. She's the one that gets to decide what she's going to tell her attorneys. And if the client is adamant that she had nothing to do with it, it must have been Charlie and Sigfredo that went behind her back and worked out a deal or something like that, then that's what the attorney runs with.
This is still the mystery within, like the mystery within the story. What was going on there and why didn't Katie, come
Carm,
forward?
I distinctly remember you saying, 5 months ago, you said there's going to be nothing going on with this case till the trial. And boy, oh boy, were you wrong. And now I'll get hate mail for saying my mother's wrong. But you admit that you're wrong, right? Because even now you said
it's very hard for me to.
Please, I want to hear the words on tape. Say it on tape.
I don't know if I can do it.
Just please say it.
No, I was wrong, but I didn't say that. I didn't say that. I still think that there are little sideshows, but the main thing is that
all I know is I just got I was wrong.
Bring myself to say I was wrong.
I was wrong on tape. That's all I needed. So I want to give a shout out to the Tallahassee Democrat. They've been doing excellent reporting. They had a gentleman on, Judge Philip Padovano. He's a former First District Court of Appeals judge, and he told the Democrat in regards to Katie turning state's evidence. He says, this is out there. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's unusual to say the least. I've never seen it. Goes on to say, by state law, conviction for first-degree murder must carry a sentence of either the death penalty if prosecutors seek it or life in prison. Padovano said a possible path to reducing Magbanua's sentence could lie in vacating her conviction and life sentence, then offering her another plea agreement where there could be more discretion over prison time. Outside of that, there are few options. Fanci, I know you're not an attorney, but you play one in the world of podcasting. What do you make of all this? Because this guy Padovano, a judge, is basically saying he's never really seen something like this and then have to vacate the conviction, et cetera, et cetera. What do you make of all that?
First of all, I've heard a lot of lawyers get a lot of things wrong when talking about this case publicly. So let's just not act like because you're a lawyer, you're automatically the most intelligent person in the room, because that's not the case. So this person's a judge. How well does he know the case? I have a lot of attorneys back channel to me that know this case very well. So it's not like I'm just a talking head that, is just picking things out of the air with no experience or anything like that. I mean, I am well resourced. And I will say this, and in states like New York, where that's when you're convicted of, that's it, you're done. There's no reduction in sentence. That's not the case for Florida. You can renegotiate. I'm sure that there's cases where you can point to where this has happened. I really don't know. That person is a judge and is regal and shouldn't be questioned, I guess. But this has happened before.
I disagree. Everyone should be questioned. And just because you're a judge doesn't mean you know anything, as you said, about this particular case. I think it's fair to question. I'm just bringing it up because I thought it was kind of interesting. He went on to say, even if you had an agreement, would the judge go along with that? Padovano asked. This is not going to be an easy thing to do. The judge simply does not have the power to modify that sentence. Continuing on saying, how bad does the state want to get Adelson? He said, and they probably have to clear this. I thought this was interesting with the Markel family. Judy, does Georgia have to get the Markels to sign off on this? That sounds a little strange to me.
I don't think so. And I don't know if you guys watched my show the other day, but I was trying to get Chuck Collins, who is an attorney in Florida. He represented Luis Rivera. I was trying to get him to be a guest on my show, but then he wasn't able to make it. So that would have been a question I would have wanted to ask the attorney, the one who practices there in Florida and does criminal defense.
So wait a minute. So it's a better deal to be condemned in Florida to a lifetime in prison than in New York. That's what you're saying, Fanci?
You can renegotiate after you've been found guilty in Florida, as opposed to states that don't allow that, like New York.
As a guy that was in broadcast news for corporate legacy media for 25 years, it feels so good to be able to say that Carmela is like Anderson Cooper and that she takes 19 news cycles to sometimes get a question out. And I can say it freely without being fired the way it used to be. You couldn't say anything about anybody, but you got to check the media in a big way, not only attorneys. That's a little promo.
It's the best to work for yourself.
Best to work for yourself.
Judy is also working for herself.
Even if you can't afford bananas for your kids, it's best to work for yourself. But if I may indulge everyone, we have the best fans, as you guys do, and I'd like to just go through a few viewer comments and get your take. The first one coming from Karen, and not that kind of Karen, a nice Karen, says, in my opinion, she kept quiet. We're talking about Katie here. These are all related to Katie. In my opinion, Katie kept quiet because her and her attorney believed she would be found not guilty. She 100% knows the story, and she knows all who is involved, obviously. Who cares if she lied, if she comes forward and can incriminate the whole family, which she could. Her words are gold. They are not going to give a crap if she lied. Without her, they probably would never incriminate Donna and Wendy. Fanci, what do you make of those comments?
That is, I think that this was all orchestrated to, this is just my theory, but, everything that I know and how many years I've been digesting everything and key input from people who talk to me, I think my impression is the fact that I think they've got Donna. I think they're waiting to see what happens with Charlie, whether Charlie's going to flip or when they convict, they're just, they're moving up the chain. But I think they have Donna. I think Harvey now is more interesting now. I had a lawyer tell me that they think that Harvey, they have more evidence now on Harvey, or just as much as Donna, because of the car, the Lexus, and because of that Surrey tape of, having knowledge. I don't know if it's going to be of the murder, but it's definitely of having knowledge of after the fact and being complicit. So I thought that was interesting comment from a prosecutor. I think Wendy is the real one everyone wants, because it seems the most unfair, and it seems like she is the one most responsible in many people's eyes. And I will say that I think they went to her and said, Wendy, you're having all these problems. We're going to fix it for you. You've got a very strong family behind you, in quotes, because that was what Donna put in the email. And we are fighters. And I think they went and said, we're going to do this in a way it'll never come back to you. You're going to be the first looked at, the hardest scrutinized. We're going to do this to make you feel good. We're going to do this in a way it could never be traced back to you. And that's with the WhatsApp. That's why Wendy's always on WhatsApp. That's why it's, Donna and Charlie talking. And when Charlie calls and Donna goes, Charlie goes, who does this have to do with, right after the bump? And Donna goes, just the two of us. It's almost like Wendy's cool. Wendy's name wasn't mentioned. That's how I took it. And based on everything else, I have all the other circumstantial evidence around it.
A big shout out to Carm, because very early on, when no one was mentioning Harvey's name, Carm was asking repeatedly about Harvey. I didn't mean to cut you off, Fanci. We don't do that on our show, so continue on,
We
please.
do that on our show.
LOL.
So.
Yes, you do. You're known for that, and that's why we love you. You know, I was actually on Twitter. I broke the news about, and I put up the document about how Katie states evidence, and I also put in the notes. Katie's term states evidence, and I also put "Hi Wendy" and a little smiley face, like she likes to sign off. Christopher DeCoste liked that tweet.
Do you worry at all, Fanci, about? I know you've been reprimanded publicly. I'm not going to say his name, but by Wendy's attorney, because I don't want to say his name. Carm would get paranoid. Carm's a Holocaust survivor. She's paranoid. But do you have any trepidation in calling out Wendy so vociferously, knowing that you've been reprimanded by her attorney?
I wasn't reprimanded. He asked to speak with me. He said, speak with me and you could comment more accurately instead of, this innuendo or whatever, defamatory innuendo. Which I always, I would be, I guess, nervous if I stated I knew something as a fact, which I never do. I don't know. We're going to have to wait to find out who knows. So, and also she's listed as she's been named as a co-conspirator in court documents and in open court. So I'm really not concerned. Flat
out question to you, if you can answer. Is it your opinion, not fact, but your opinion that Wendy eventually gets indicted and convicted of this crime?
I think we'll know in a few months, and it depends on if Katie has something that implicates her. But I don't know. I don't know if Charlie and Donna were not that disciplined. Obviously, they put her on put the intermediary, the person they hired to get this done, who's now convicted and is serving a life sentence. They put her on the family payroll and reported her Social Security to the state of Florida and the IRS. So they're not careful. There's got to be. We've seen the slips. We saw the slips from, the hitman shooting the hole, Shoderick Nobles buying cocaine off the streets of Tallahassee while they're there to do a murder. They're sloppy. I see Don and Charlie being very sloppy on the bump. So with that said, Wendy, and plus, never forget, Luis Rivera said in his proffer that Sigfredo turned to him and said, there's the lady that wants her kids back. There's Wendy. Back to back. The lady is Wendy. And they also, Tara Kwas gave us that little tip in her little post-gaggle loving the camera, after the sentencing. She said that when they got in that car trouble and Shoderick Nobles was on the stand in that first trial, he said, we should call the lady to help us with this car. We're stuck. There's someone local. And so that's a big freaking clue. So if all those things bubble up and there's some sort of tangible proof, Wendy's a goner.
It's funny. Someone called me out, and I thought it was really peculiar because I said that maybe Charlie would flip on his sister, and they said, how would he ever flip on his sister? He loves her. But clearly in that conversation between him and his mom, when he's calling her a trust fund baby, essentially, he's got some animus toward her, right?
Charlie feels like he should dictate everything to everyone, that he is, again, the maestro. I don't think that there's a joke behind there, really. I really do believe that's how he views his role in his life and the people around him. And I think the way that I read that is that he resents Wendy a great deal. And he specifically will resent her when he is inconvenienced by her decision. So he did this big thing. He's complaining to his mom. She's not liking the guy that he wants her to like. And that's troubling. So you only got to imagine now that he's sitting in jail paying for something he did for her, how he must feel and how much he must resent her.
Carm.
No, I know it's not my place or my role, but I want to throw out a suggestion to all of us who are now involved with this. The Johnny Come Lately, like you and I, and Fanci Fiction, who was there from the beginning, and Judy, who was there from the beginning. Let's take a month-long moratorium on speculating who will be. I will make it simple. I think they will all go to jail. And then let's leave it at that for a month.
It's like Sober October. It's like Sober October.
Like till the first of the year.
Carm, that's no fun. But you just went on the record saying they're all going down. Is that your contention, Carm?
That's my contention.
Wow. And
I'm with you on that.
Wow.
I'll do it.
All right. On to another comment. We're going to wrap it up momentarily. Carm is she's the floor director, and she's giving me the little hand. It's funny. If people actually watch this on YouTube, they'll see the insanity of me looking at Carm when she grunts and
He granted twice as much. Okay, forget about
Anyway,
it. If you guys,
we should have
one day,
outtakes
guys,
of us on
off
camera.
the record, I'll tell you what I'm going through in my personal life, and you will think I must be psychotic to handle it this well.
Carm, you're doing it well. Brad Watson, 7324. This comment is for Judy. No matter how good Katie's information may be, she still deserves nothing less than 15 years without the possibility of parole. Is there a fixed number, Judy, that they would not go below? Does this person make a point? Curious on your take.
No, I don't think there's some fixed number. I mean, I think she's very unlikely to just be able to walk free, but I personally wouldn't feel bad if she just served an additional 5 to 10 years and then got out, because she was the intermediary. She wasn't the shooter. She wasn't the mastermind of the whole plot to kill Dan.
We're going to do this ping pong style. So this one is for Fanci. Comes from Katie Cool Lady, who's an awesome fan. She calls herself a voice for victims. She writes, as I'm watching this again and thinking about things, I'm wondering about Carm's concern. That's you, Carmela. That this could all fall flat. I do have one concern, and that is that Kawas is still working with her, although it seems like she might not be, according to Judy. She says, I think she was terribly guided by Kawas for her prior trials, and I wonder why. I have found Kawas's behavior fishy. For example, how she was seemingly devastated in the courtroom when the verdict came in. Then when interviewed outside of the courtroom after sentencing, she came across almost giddy. I just hope Katie is not advised due to some self-serving attorney's self-interest to not tell the entire truth.
Well, first off, Katie Cool Lady is a wonderful person that everybody should know more about. She's not just a fan of yours. She is, I actually did a live stream with her for 90 minutes. It's funny, you would throw that to me. That's very random. Her sister was murdered in 1998 by a group of con men and was brutally, viciously murdered for life insurance. And Katie was really picked up the pieces. There's been several, and news that she's been featured throughout a lot of TV programs about her sister's murder. And she is an advocate, and she has sat every day in the Jodi Arias trial and grazed herself, and also in the Scott Peterson. So she's a bit of a legend, and she's writing a book. She's a real hero, that lady. So anyway, so that comment has more weight now, given her expertise and everything she's gone through and her insight. I agree with her, and I would not be happy if Katie gets out before her 50s or 60s. I want her to do real time. She caused a lot of pain to the Markel family, and I don't give a crap how useful she would be and that she didn't do this and do that. She deserves to do real hard time for several years for the pain and the devastation she brought on this world, period. The other thing is, Tara Kawas, I have very little respect for her. If you watch Court Cam, or if you watch her on TV, she lights up. It's like she really loves the camera.
I love Fanci's passion, and she's always teaching. I had no idea about Katie Cool Lady, so now I do. Judy, this comment for you. We're getting there, Carm. We're getting there.
Well, you don't have to compulsively go through all of it.
Carm, I have OCD. I got it from...
Not from me.
Not from you. I definitely didn't get it from you. I got it from some other... I have other
Maybe
theories.
I caused it, but I didn't. You didn't.
This comes from Ava Solag. The Adelsons are most likely not keeping their end of the bargain and not financially funding her family. The Adelsons figured Katie can't do anything because she's doing life, in all caps. Katie hopefully has a bombshell with receipts, there's the word, with receipts, which will implicate all the Adelsons. If you think about it, Katie really holds the skeleton key and carried out Charlie's wishes and profited big time. Judy, there has been speculation that the Adelsons are funding certain aspects of Katie's life, and maybe that money flow stopped, and this is why Katie is now flipping.
It could be, I don't like to make absolute statements since I don't have firsthand knowledge of what's going on behind the scenes. But as far as I recall, there was that jailhouse informant that said Katie was bragging about how she was going to be really rich once she got out of jail, which means that she was expecting a big payday from Charlie or somebody. But then I also found out just by snooping around court records that one of her brothers was foreclosed upon this year. So it kind of makes me think, well, okay, well, I guess there's not like some spigot of money that's going between the Adelsons to Katie's family members. Who knows what's really going on? And then, of course, she was found indigent, so that she needed to be referred to the public defender's office for her appeal. I could see Katie being really upset, thinking, well, there's not going to be a pay date for me.
Final comment. It comes from Joetta Flies Scanby. Joetta says, I love Carm. Katie Magbanua was blackmailing Charlie Adelson on a regular basis. She isn't scared of anyone. Katie Magbanua brought this crime to Sigfredo and Luis Rivera. I hate when women are automatically assumed to be meek and bullied. Had Sigfredo Garcia got Katie Magbanua to do this, she would have gotten off with a, quote, scared, abused woman defense. Every newspaper would be printing how two Miami thugs got an innocent, naive woman to kill someone by threat or intimidation. Let's work on fairness for all and stop acting as if Katie Magbanua is any better than Sigfredo Garcia, Charlie Adelson, or Luis Rivera because she cries and they don't. Get Donna Adelson as well. I just don't think Wendy Adelson will be charged, and I don't think Charlie Adelson provided Katie Magbanua with enough information other than what the prosecution has already garnered on Charlie Adelson, because he was smart enough to keep his family at a distance, and Katie Magbanua was dumb enough to put herself in the middle of it. I mean, basically she's saying, let's not feel sorry for poor little Katie. What's your reaction?
Well, I don't really feel sorry for her, but that stuff that the person wrote towards the end, I don't really agree with, because I'm pretty sure, or I feel strongly, that Charlie did fill in Katie on all those details. I mean, when you listen to the Dolce Vita recording, even though you can't really understand most of what Katie was saying, I mean, it sure sounded like she was totally in on it. He was running ideas by her, feeding her possible scenarios. You know, they talked a lot on the phone, thanks to Fanci Fiction's wiretaps that we can hear. It seemed like she and Charlie had some sort of special bond there because of their role in plotting the murder. So I think I also recall even Charlie saying that Katie was his best friend. Fanci, do you recall that?
Yes, that's a good one, Judy.
Yeah, like
he
did.
He goes
like,
"You're my best friend. Of course, we're talking."
Yeah, and he's trying to give her relationship advice, and it was so funny when Katie was like, "You should be the one talking or giving relationship advice. You're the one that can't even stay in a relationship," you know. So they had that bond that, like, even though they were no longer romantic partners, I guess, but they were still communicating and sharing ideas, and we all know Charlie can't shut his mouth.
They were probably friends with privileges.
Friends with benefits, they say.
Benefits.
But close enough. But
Yeah.
Fanci, you'll have the final word here. She basically is saying, you know, Katie is to blame. I think you were just saying that because you want to see her do some hard time. How does this all kind of wrap up in your opinion?
Yeah, and in regards to that comment said that they thought Charlie was so smart that he kept his family out of it and was able to protect them. But if you listen to any wiretaps or read any documents, that's true. Oh gosh, we got a little fight going on here. But anyway, I will say,
Unbelievable.
I can't ignore that.
Fanci, what I deal with is unbelievable. She can't sit for another minute. She's rattling a paper bag.
I am begging
unbelievable.
you to go.
There's no podcast like this. Fanci, finish your comment.
Yeah. So, but in terms of, Katie needs to do a real hard time. I think she is a disgusting human being, and I would not feel good. She needs to come out with, some gray hairs. And I find her completely responsible. And just like that comment, like if we were to go on that theory, if we were to take that logic, then we would only be doing the underman. We would never get the mob boss. The mob boss would live free lives, could never be touched because they weren't the ones actually pulling the trigger. And I don't want to live in a world like that.
Carm, who's rustling a paper bag, now has a question. Now, since it's her question, she has time.
What I was thinking about Katie, that maybe it's my professional deviation of doing therapy and social work and all that jazz. I look at Katie and I look at the whole person, and in a certain way, I feel sorry for her. in a certain way. Because
That's exactly what this woman is saying in the last comment. Is don't feel sorry for her.
No. She's a hard bitch. She did the horrible things. But if you put the whole picture when she was a little child from Joel, today you are difficult. When you put it together, when she arrived her family arrived from the Philippines, and what she went through in life, and where she ended up with Sigfredo Garcia and the 2 children, and working in nightclubs, and she had a pretty bad life, even though in some parts of it weren't horrible. Okay, but she had and you can say she brought it all on herself. If she would have been raised in a Idaho middle-class family with a mommy and daddy and 2 siblings and going to church and all that normal thing, who knows would she have done it? In other words, I look at it from a therapist's perspective, and I know she has done a horrible thing, but I still feel, on some level, I feel some sorrow for the way her life was thrown away.
Carm, you have a heart.
She has a college degree. She had a mom who was a working nurse. She had 2 brothers, one who owns 2 dojos and has a chain in Gainesville. The other one is a successful IT person. And we had Yindra Velasquez, who went on this, who's actually was media report, said that her mom was wonderful. Was a wonderful person and a very upstanding person. And she got herself all the way through to a 4-year college degree into a school that not everyone gets into, in the same school that Charlie went to. I just don't think, I hear what you're saying, Carm, but I just do not think that is the environment that you're equating to why maybe that Katie is a product of her environment. I don't think that is the accurate picture.
Okay.
And I'll tell you what.
I live and learn.
And let me say this. She's not the only one doing hard time. I'm trying to corral an 83-year-old podcast host who's rustling through. Carm, yes. I'll let you have the last word because you just got. I could see you ready to fire back at me.
No, Joel.
I could see you ready to fire back.
We'll discuss this in the
car. We'll argue about this off
My
camera.
husband is not well.
Guys,
really not well.
Love you. Judy Tseng, Asian American Legal Focus on YouTube. Fanci, plug your stuff for us because I know you have your Patreon page as well. So I'll let you do it.
Oh, yeah. Patreon, Fanci Fiction. And that's just where I say things behind a tiny paywall that I necessarily wouldn't want to say to the bulletin board that is YouTube, and share things, documents and stuff.
Beautiful. And Carm, next time maybe you can bring aluminum foil instead of plastic. It will make even louder noises. Love you, America. Till next time.